maker, infamous for my sloppy work. Teachers wrung their hands on me, and my parents were used to hearing complaints about their delinquent son. So there was a time when I was severely scolded by them for deliberately messing up my father's well-organized bookshelf, just with the intention to cause trouble. Remorseless even after the reprimand, I made a decisive move to play a prank on him. So when I was about to leave the house for a tutoring session one day, I stealthily approached his work area, hoping he wasn't anywhere around. Delighted to see that his PC was left on when he stepped aside, I instinctively hit the Command Control Alt down, which flipped his entire display screen 180 degrees. Then I merely left the house. Not very familiar with technology, my dad was unable to use it for 2 whole hours, and by the time I got home, I was welcomed with the stern face of his. Making a deal that I would only fix it if he wouldn't criticize me for it, I reversed it with a satisfied grin. A few weeks later, my mother received a call from my school teacher for being irresponsible with my homework, as I admitted the truth, which wasn't that I didn't do my homework, it was that all of it got lost in the abyss of my room. A shelf filled with everything, from candy wrappers to even ripped pieces of homework. Nothing would get found once placed in there. Well, this mess was the consequence of me locking myself up in my room for at least 4 hours every single day to game nonstop. My parents were immensely frustrated with all the hundreds of calls they received relating to my sloppiness, and were very annoyed with my bad habit of gaming for long hours. At that time, I thought I could have a break from all this irritating condemnation during my transition into middle school. Well, I was seriously wrong. Due to my poor performance at home relating to tidiness, along with my very undisciplined self, my parents notified me that I was going to attend a summer camp named Military Summer Camp for Hong Kong Youth. According to my parents, I would get drilled by professional soldiers, exactly like the ones you see marching with their heads high down the streets on National Day. At first thought, I was fascinated. I imagined all the real soldiers I get to meet, the military performances I get to watch. But then I realized what a training camp entailed. Being deprived from all sorts of technology, games, and snacks. Not wanting to go alone, I texted all my friends to see if any of them would join me. Well, the replies left me in a miserable conclusion. I would embark on a lonesome venture into a training camp without a single person I actually know of. To my surprise, the short fleeting months before summer quickly flew by, and I was forced to face the reality of going to a summer camp with military soldiers. The day came, and I was sent off in despair. At first sight of the camp, I was already thinking of ways to escape it, like faking an injury or even bribing the guards. Nevertheless, all these high hopes vanished when I recalled having a body check a few days ago, proving my good health, and the little money I brought was nowhere near enough to bribe anybody. As I looked around the other kids I would spend the next 5 days with, I noticed something they all had in common. Their eyes gleamed with anticipation, excited at the rare opportunity to spend a week with real soldiers. Meanwhile, I was the odd one out. I felt like the road was coming to an end. The first day was rough. The morning after I was assigned to my group, along with provided with my daily necessities, we were taught basic gestures like marching and saluting. These were tolerable, but worst of all was the overwhelming number of dormitory rules we were told to follow. When the sun was in mid-sky that day, we were all ordered into a big open field wearing our thick, long-sleeved uniforms in the blistering heat. With no rest or mercy, we spent long, interminable hours rehearsing for the opening ceremony that would occur the very next day. I wasn't used to the strict, austere environment, and moreover, couldn't cope with the summer swelter without air conditioning. So by the time our monitors came to inspect our uniforms, even though I tried my very best to look orderly like everyone else, I wasn't up to the soldier's standards. Soon enough, I was called aside by him for accidentally leaving my laces untied. Though it was only the first day, I was punished by standing alone in the back, isolated from everyone else, and forced to suffer humiliation. While everyone else looked unified in their positions, I stood there, alone and awkward, with my face like a bright red tomato. And this was only the start of it. Remember how I said the first day was rough? The next day was no better. I was that stereotypical, annoyingly grumpy kid, despised by everything. I groaned about the hours we spent under the flaming sun. I complained about the constant marching that made my body ache from head to toe. I even argued with the soldiers that wanted to make my hair as short as theirs. It was only the second day, but to me, it felt like the second year. When we moved to the air-conditioned lecture hall to attend a speech, it was the first time I let out a sigh of relief. I finally caught a break from all the rigorous training and decided to doze off, but my moment of relaxation only made matters worse. When we got back to our cabins for a surprise notebook check, mine was the only one without a single drop of ink in it, proof that I was sleeping instead of taking notes. For this laziness, the monitor said, the consequence would be much more severe. Ironically, everything was fine until bedtime. I carefully eluded the monitor by taking longer to work on hygiene. But somehow my monitor caught me carefully avoiding contact with him, so he invited me for a chat with him. At first, I thought it was a trap, that it was going to be a punishment that would make me remember for the rest of my life to never doze off in class again. Contrary to my prediction, it was a conversation that would substantially change the way I live. I've been noticing a grumpy, pessimistic attitude in camp so far. Is everything okay with you? He asked genuinely. His sincerity caught me off guard, so I decided to be honest with him. Not really. I don't enjoy my time here at all. We never take breaks from the exhaustive training. And I've been trapped in this place for 2 whole days without my phone or my computer. Well, he replied, an optimistic attitude is crucial to being a soldier, especially when you're a professional like me. I get sent all over the place for various jobs, from doing labor work, like lumbering, to humanitarian work, like assisting the needy, or even combat by fighting in the front lines. Though you're not a soldier, you should have a more open mind and be more willing to step out of your comfort zone. Get a go on the unknown. This will make your life full of opportunities to enjoy the road you're in. We never know when opportunities come, so we should always be ready. That's it for now. Go to bed. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. I was so shocked by how he approached me that when I climbed onto bed that night, I couldn't shake his words out of my head. His advice was like a magnet that wouldn't let go from my mind. Although I was physically exhausted, not only from that day's hard training, but also from the reduced amount of rest I received, I couldn't let sleep overtake me. All I thought about was his advice to me, and I subsequently reflected on my behavior in life so far. So for the remaining 3 days, I constantly reminded myself to think positively, and apparently his trick does work. I didn't lose my temper because of minor incidents, nor did I complain about pushing my physical boundaries. I just endured all the hardships with a smile on my face, grateful to spend my time here with the soldiers. Thanks to my ardor, the takeaway I received from the camp was to the greatest extent. I demonstrated much improvement in terms of staying organized and developed the habit of tidying up after myself. My cheerful attitude made time fly by in the blink of an eye. Before I knew it, the camp was over and I was returning home. On the train ride back, I looked back on my first 2 days of camp. I realized how fun it could have been if it weren't for my unwillingness to participate. At that time, my brain was so clouded with negative thoughts, it completely ruined my mood for the first 2 days. Yet, after the friendly reminder from my monitor, I treated the camp as if a lifetime opportunity instead, and the rest of the days turned out to be much more enjoyable. This was because I continuously looked on the bright side. Despite drastic changes in weather, undesirable haircuts, as well as even harsh training sessions, my situation didn't change. I couldn't control that anyways. Well, it was my attitude that did, and that made all the difference. But that sort of optimism was for the camp, I thought. And now the camp's over. I guess I can resume my former lifestyle and leave the camp where it belongs in my past memories. It only took a few days after I returned home for all the memories of the camp to be set aside and forgotten. Though I had put contemplation of the camp out of my mind, the lessons I learned there still stuck with me. Never before had my parents complimented me for my tidy room, as well as other newly developed habits for cleaning up after myself. This newfound initiative to take care of myself and my environment was something they had never seen in me. Besides that, they also noticed how disciplined I'd become. Rather than being easily distracted from my schoolwork like my old self, I finished all my work without being sidetracked or off task. I was no longer the person who frequently received deducted marks for missing or late work, but rather the one who always handed work in before the deadline. Before I changed my mindset and seized the opportunity to better myself at the camp, this was a seemingly impossible goal that I had strived to accomplish for years. To my amazement, all it took was 5 days of exploring outside my comfort zone. This allowed me to improve in countless areas, benefiting me as a student and as one who serves the community. Furthermore, I had always been a sickly boy when younger. I hated watching people exercise, nor was I a fan of it. I loathed it simply because I was unfit and the one that stands out among a crowd. Before the camp, I would always reject my dad's repetitive invitation to go running with him. Despite the appealing effects he used to persuade me, I would always lock him out of my room just so that I can game and eat snacks without being bothered. After the camp, however, I took up the initiative, and instead of having him invite me, I decided to go join his run, determined to get in shape. Regardless of what others thought about me, I started taking weekly runs, and turned out that I completely fell in love with it. This was not only because it cleared my mind to a state of peace from the bustling city of Hong Kong, but I also had potential talent in this. Watching my strength and times go in two opposite directions, one up and one down, in only a short matter of time, made me take a further step to run competitively. To this day, I continue to train regularly, as it is a talent I only discovered from taking one bold step out of my comfort zone. Therefore, I urge every one of you not to be hesitant in trying out the unknown. Keep an eager heart when challenging your vulnerability. Take up the courage to explore things you had never dreamed of, or may even reinforce your deepest insecurities. Rethink the limits you felt comfortable establishing. Never approach them with a skeptical heart, but rather enthusiastically expose yourself to the hidden waters waiting for you to uncover. All will be tough, I guarantee you, like what I came across. Others may be forceful, challenging your bravery. However, all of them are encased around a worthwhile reward waiting to be delivered. Take my personal encounter with military camp and running as an example. Believe me, you won't regret unleashing yourself to reach your fullest potential yet. Thank you.